Minister, on the 10th of January this year, you're probably aware, or I don't know whether your officials are aware or not, that in Brussels, in the Transport Committee, an amendment was put at the Transport Committee to include more parts of Ireland, actually the Western Narc or on TNT funding, but it also included the amendment stated under the European Commission's Brexit mitigation proposals in relation to the Atlantic corridor to include the ports of Shannon Foynes, which was always in it, Dublin, Rosslare, Waterford, Cork, to link Brest, Ruskov, Cherbourg, and look at this, 4 or 5 more places in France and different other countries. You'll be in Brussels, I presume, after that, because it didn't go to a vote, which is unusual. It was fully agreed. It's not going to a vote of MEPs. When you're in Brussels for the, I think it's a trilogue, is it what you call it, when you go over to Brussels in the coming weeks in a meeting with the European Commission, can you commit, because as has been pointed out by all deputies, the likes of Donegal and the west of Ireland has been badly affected. Under this amendment, and I presume you're accepting the amendment for Rosslare and for Waterford and the areas that has been included, this comes under the same as was in 2012 for basically along the Atlantic corridor, the Western Narc. Can you confirm that if this is the case, as which I've pointed out, that when you go to Brussels, that amendment is there? Will you give an undertaking that you will include the rest of the west of Ireland, which has been committed to in the programme for government? And I think that my understanding is that in the last few weeks that you've got a letter or an email or a letter from the AAC task force to get that area put into the TNT maps. And could you just make a comment on that or confirm that that area would be put into it? Because what we have to remember, Donegal, be it Monaghan, be it Sligo and those areas along the periphery of the border, Louth is in it at the moment because it would be up from Newry to Dublin. That those areas which will be, if there is a hard Brexit, will be hit ferociously hard, that will be included as was in 2012 and as is now in the programme for government that said it would do it, I think, a couple of years ago. Thank you.
If it's an order, Minister, while we're waiting, our 2 senators, if you could start to reply to Deputy Troy, if that's okay. And then we can take Senator Manley and obviously the commitment.
Okay, with your permission, I'll refer 10T questions to Mr. Burke because he's an expertise in that which I don't have. I mean, I can talk to him and then talk back to you, but I might refer that those ones to him. That'll be Deputy Fitzmaurice and Deputy Troy's questions on 10T. 10T. Deputy Troy asked about the network changes and about updating with the Commission. Would you be able to deal with those ones and the questions from Deputy Fitzmaurice?
Sorry, the Deputy Munster's question and
no, I'm just trying to keep
just the two 10T questions.
Minister, if I just want to get this right, because I don't want people to be given out about me not being fair to everybody. I think Deputy Troy's questions should be answered first. And if there
10T is the first question he asked.
No, just to make it right. And then we go on then to Deputy Munster if Senator Manley is not here. But I need to bring Senator O'Cady if and when he returns to make his contribution. Sorry, I just want to get that right. Yeah. Okay, apologies.
Thank you, Deputies and Chair. In relation to the Connecting Europe facility and 10T, there's 3 elements, I suppose, to what's happening in Brussels at the moment. There's one is a proposal for Brexit. That's linked directly to Brexit, which is a realignment of the North Sea Mediterranean corridor, which is a corridor that runs from Ireland into the UK, Benelux, and into France and down to Marseille. And what's been looked at there is, with the UK leaving, how do we realign that corridor so that it will look coherent and will be coherent. And what the Commission have proposed, and we have accepted, is that it should be links in from Dublin Port, Cork Port, and we've asked for Shannon Fines to be included in that as well. That would link into the northern French ports and would link into Belgium and Dutch ports as well. We asked, what we've looked for is for connections into the Zeebrugge, Antwerp, Calais, no, Cherbourg is on the. Sorry, I'll get you the list, deputies.
Can you come back to me if you want?
No worries. There is on a separate a separate aspect of what's happening is there's the funding for TENS T from 2021 is being renegotiated at the moment. It's a regulation that's been brought in. As part of that regulation, we have asked that we also be linked into Le Havre, which is on the Atlantic corridor. So it'll be two different corridors that we'll be linked into. And so far the Commission have accepted this. The French are very strong in favour of this as well. So what we'll have under the new regulation, if it goes through, as it is at the moment, is a link into the French ports and on the North Sea Mediterranean corridor and the Dutch and the Belgian ones, and also Le Havre on the Atlantic corridor. We can only connect into ports that are on the core network, and at the moment those are the ports that are on the core network. As part of the renegotiation of the funding mechanism for 2021 onwards, we've also sought with both ourselves, Malta and Cyprus. We have looked to change the initial Commission proposal, and the initial Commission proposal was that they would only fund on the comprehensive network cross-border projects, and the rest of the comprehensive network, of which the vast majority is in Ireland. The vast majority of our network is on the comprehensive. That they weren't going to fund that. We did a joint position with Malta and Cyprus, and we also separately ourselves looked for any member state that hadn't or that wouldn't have a land border with another member state, that they would allow funding for all the comprehensive network. And the Commission have accepted that as well. So what it means that in the next round we'll continue to have funding available for the comprehensive network that wasn't in the Commission's original proposal. And on the remainder of TENS T, we have met with the Commission in terms of a review, Deputy, of the network, and we have asked for a review across the table with the Commission. We have yet to submit a full request to them, but we've raised at a working party as well that we would have a review in light of Brexit. That we would have a review. We have made in everything that we have kind of said to the Commission. We're conscious of the fact that Brexit has particular implications for connectivity from the island of Ireland into our continental markets, and that the absence of the UK from that will mean that areas, particularly in the west and the northwest, will become more peripheral. That would have been the case otherwise in terms of getting to the markets. And that's a part of the Commission that have been forthcoming in that, but we have asked at Working Party for that review. We've said it across the table. We have to formalise it in terms of a formal submission that will take account of what we will see as being the implications for Brexit.
Sure,
just that this is important, and thank you for your response. My understanding is an amendment has been passed by the Committee on Transport in Europe on the 10th of January. Are you familiar with that?
It's the Parliament, I think.
Yeah, it's the committee that sits of MEPs on transport. An amendment was passed that included Waterford Port, Rosslare Port, and all the different areas that I said on that. Now, if you look at the original that was here in Ireland in 2012, Waterford was connected through rail up to Galway. It was connected to Ballina. And what I am asking you is, if that amendment, which is going to, am I right in saying trilogue, where the ministers meet and that, is coming up in the next few weeks, is my understanding, that amendment, I presume Ireland is going to accept it because it's a good thing that you'll make a core node, but when that amendment is there, I presume that you can put in an amendment as well, which is my understanding, that the likes of Killybegs, Galway Port, or Knock Airport. Knock Airport can actually get, if you look at it, a special status because it's in a peripheral area. That because of the Brexit implications, my understanding is that's acceptable in Europe. And will ye go about it that way in the next few weeks, the way that we get it back onto it rather than having to wait a few years?
part of the difficulty there, deputies, is that it's only if you're on the core network that you can be on the corridors and on those realignments. And at the moment, some of those areas are not on the core network and therefore can't be part of the realignments. The corridors were also set on the basis that they linked the key urban nodes within a territory. And in our case, on the island of Ireland, that's from Belfast, Dublin and Cork. We have an offshoot in the Shannon Fines because of the maritime connection there. But what the Parliament are proposing, my understanding, and we've raised this with the Commission, is that those areas are not eligible to be put on the core network.
Just to be clear, Washford Port wasn't the core node, and it is now gone through on the amendment. Yeah. So just to be clear, that wasn't on the Dublin, Cork, or it wasn't on the Limerick.
No, but what's in the regulation at the moment is the comprehensive. We have two comprehensive ports, which is Rosslare and Waterford, both of those, but they're not core ports. The only core ports that we have on the island of Ireland, well, sorry, in Ireland, is Cork, yeah, and Shannon Fines is on the port.
But it is now on this amendment making them.
But I suppose the point to make it is that at the moment you cannot go on any of the corridors unless you are in the core. So, and part of the reason that we'd be looking for a review is to take account of Brexit and what that means for traffic flows within Ireland and also off the island of Ireland.
Could you undertake or give us an undertaking that you will go to Brussels, look at this, or go look at this amendment, and if it's a case that Rosslare is getting that status that Shannon has and Dublin has, that Killybegs, because it's right beside the border, that like the Galway Port and Knock Airport, that they are put onto the whole infrastructure of it to try and include more of Ireland, and I think Knock Airport can come under. There's a status in it called a peripheral area, which would allow for it to come in. Could you give that undertaking that you'll do that?
If I may interject, that's the reason why I've been looking for a review of the 10T network in order, and it was a commitment in the programme for government long before ever Brexit, but in light of the fact that Brexit has come around, I think it's more crucial now that we review the 10T network designation, and I suppose it would be kind of regrettable that no formal application for a review. I acknowledge you have raised it informally, but it would be kind of regrettable that no formal application has been made, and perhaps the Minister could inform us when is it their intention to make a formal application to accelerate the review of the 10T network, because I think with a review, from what Deputy Fitzmaurice is saying, that will enable other designation, other ports, other airports to be designated as part of the core network.
We can do it. Senator O'Mahony, just sorry.
Just the Transport Commissioner, when she was before us a couple of, I don't know, was it 18 months ago now, did give an undertaking that, depending on that it was 2023, as Deputy Troy said, but because of the Brexit situation, that it would be reviewed earlier and that it would take into account the things that were being talked about here. So I think that it's important. Based on that, I would assume that Ireland would be pushing at an open door to review all of that, and by saying that, you know, because they're not connected to the core area, that they're ruled out. I would imagine that a very good case would be made, because we are in a, if you like, for the want of a better word, a crisis situation in 3 weeks' time. So I think there's a saying somewhere that you always make use of a crisis. So if it can be possible, and it should be possible, to push an open door, the fact that the Commissioner said that would be looked at in the context if this thing went off the.
Sure, just on the point of information, that I appreciate our two senators were absent during the vote, so we took Deputy Troy's answers or questions in the interim, but once they're finished, I think, and Shandor O'Keefe, you have to speak yet, I think, ask questions, all right, so we'll give you the floor then. No. But I just try and get, Deputy Troy's answers, the rest of them, if you can, please, if that's it. Pardon? Sorry. Tara, sorry.
Okay. Okay, let me go back to Deputy Troy's questions. Okay, on the.
Before you go into the other answers, will you answer that specifically?
Yeah,
one about the 10T and the review
certainly.
of when you'll make a formal application.
That's fine. Yep, that can be done.
Put yourself, because it's
thanks,
government policy.
I just say, in terms of the proposal that I mentioned on the North Sea Mediterranean corridor, part of that proposal we think will call for review anyway, because a number of member states, France in particular, and ourselves have been pushing for it. So that may call for review, but we will also do the submission to the formal submission to the Commission looking for it. Can I also say just on that the fact that Watford and Rosslare are not on the core network, they're still eligible for funding under the Trans-European networks. And we have talked to Rosslare as recently as Monday in relation to the next call. There's a current call that's out there for funds, and Rosslare are looking to see if there's projects that they can do in relation to that. So they're still eligible for funding that are there for projects that they have that fall within those calls.
Just to be clear, the reason was given to us a few years ago that it was privately owned. Would that be right?
The general
unique ownership structure, right? We won't go into that. But what I'm saying is, it is now from this amendment. If you looked at the amendment that's gone in Europe, that it is now going to be put in under the 10T, and it will become a core node. If that can be done there, surely, with the, as Deputy Troy pointed out, with the Brexit in be it Leisure or Killybegs, that's right beside there for a core node in Port and Galway and the likes of Knock, that you get the west and the northwest into the frame, if it can be done through an amendment, what they seem to have done in Brussels, that I presume Ireland will accept with open hands.
I think that point is well made there.
We're still no advisor, and with no disrespect to you, Mr Burke, when the government intend to make a formal application to review the 10T network?
Sorry, that will happen shortly. We expect that to happen over the next couple of months.
It'll be very shortly. I can give you that assurance.
Okay.
Questions.